Are you with the Prime Minister Ariel Henry?
No, 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 no,
No
no,
way.
no,
Okay.
no. It listen, some people had the temptation to pick at him, but we made a very calculated because he's been irrelevant for a few days now. I mean, the his resignation in the last 24 hours was basically a formality. It was
Okay.
clear that once the United States finally
That
withdrew their support of him, that he was no longer relevant. I mean, we had been asking the United States to drop their support since 2021. And when I say we, I mean a very legitimate coalition of forces inside Haiti were making those demands, which we were amplifying. And they never did. Even the majority of Haitian American elected officials in the United States, under the umbrella of the National Haitian American Elected Officials Network, representing Haitian elected officials in 18 states as well as DC, wrote a letter co-penned with Femmes in Action, our C4, in September 2023, asking the Biden administration to withdraw their support, and they never did. And they only did that when the gangs were controlling Port-au-Prince, many of those gangs that the former prime minister was connected with in various degrees.
okay.
So it's one of these businesses about Washington trying to hold on to a very bad situation and series of decisions for way too long, and then when they finally do the knee-jerk reaction of withdrawing support, then the country is in the situation that it is because the former prime minister had a falling out with many of the gangs over various reasons, and they turned against him.
Now, today we're meeting with Paul Namphy, the political director of FANM, Family Action Network Movement in Miami, to discuss the ongoing crisis in Haiti. Hello, Mr. Namphy. It's our pleasure
Greetings,
to have you on our program again today.
greetings, Janelle, and greetings to all of your listeners, your listenership on this very, very, very influential media network.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're very happy to.
Okay, in light of new events this morning. Now, my first question is, last week, a coalition of criminal armed gangs claimed power in Haiti, blocking Prime Minister Ariel Henry from returning home after he had traveled to Kenya to sign an agreement allowing for an international force to restore peace and security in Haiti. What were the events that precipitated this?
Thank you, and again, really shouting out to all of our Caribbean Today listeners on this crucial conversation about Haiti. So there were a number of events. We should probably go back to a little bit earlier because the Haitian popular movement and movement for change inside Haiti, it's a very vibrant movement. It's been really mobilized over the last few years, asking for democracy, asking for Haitian-led solutions. And a number of organizations have put their differences aside to come together to ask for that fundamental change. And we've seen an uptick in gang activity actually for about the last 6 years, particularly. In 2021, there was a surge of killings of grassroots leaders, of leaders of women's organizations, of human rights organizations, of journalists in May and June of 2021, followed by the assassination of the former president Jovenel Moise, which created a power vacuum. And in that power vacuum, a very arbitrary decision was made, not by the Haitian people, but by the international powers, including the United States, to basically impose a leadership on Haiti. And that leadership had been in control for now 2 years and 8 months, the former Prime Minister Ariel Henry. And his rule was really characterized by three aspects. First of all, by illegitimacy, because he had never received any mandate from the Haitian people. Second of all, by his linkages to many of the armed gangs. And when we're talking about a regime, we're talking also about the political and the economic elites. and elements of the regime, elements of the former parliament, of the police force, etc. But in my view, the most important aspect of the Ariel Henry regime was its complete incapacity to protect communities from gang violence, from assassinations, from rape, from kidnapping, theft. And so basically what we saw over time is that some of those gangs who had tacit understandings with the government in place broke, and there was a falling out, and they turned against the regime. And at that point, the call for the regime's ouster, which we had been amplifying here in the Haitian American community, amplifying the voices of people inside Haiti who had basically the most credible organizations inside Haiti had been asking for that regime's ouster since it came to power in 2021. And in more recent times, the armed gangs also took up that demand, and they have weapons. They have basically enforcement capability. And one of their demands was that the Ariel Henry regime step down, and another demand was that Haiti should not be hosting a international intervention, which Ariel Henry specifically asked for in October 2022, and which the majority of credible organizations inside Haiti do not believe that Ariel Henry has the mandate to make that request. And so when they saw him sign that protocol, that agreement bilaterally with the Kenyan president, despite the fact that a court in Kenya had specifically prohibited Kenyans to deploy in Haiti, and that issue was on hold, and basically the regime of Ariel Henry and President William Ruto of Kenya basically tried to do an end around and circumvent that decision. That was a spark among the leadership of the armed gangs, which again we at the Family Action Network we do not condone in any way the gang violence, the killing, the kidnapping, the raping, the theft, the violence. We do not condone it, and we do not condone those powers who are financing the gangs, including the political economic elites. But what we are saying is that the gangs made a calculus that was the time to step up their attack to oust the regime, because they felt that the regime was basically opening the country to this foreign military intervention, which they saw as a stakeholder, their power on the streets would be decreased. So ironically, we see at this point the United States government clearly made a calculation that they can no longer maintain their control over Haiti via their local prime minister that they supported and had handpicked in order to maintain control. They realized he was a liability for them, and they finally turned against him in those specific circumstances, and that's what's led to his resignation in the last 24 hours.
Okay, well, more than 5,000 prisoners were freed. Do you think that was it their intention, right, to strengthen the influence of the gang leaders by, going into the prisons and letting out the most notorious of the criminals? You think that was their intention, more or
No,
less?
clearly. And I actually, in my former capacity as a national cholera response and elimination coordinator inside Haiti in the previous decade, which was a joint effort with the Water and Sanitation Authority and the Health Ministry of Haiti, supported by various international organizations. I had worked in the prisons, and it's very important to understand prison conditions in Haiti, that you basically have 4,000 or 5,000 people or more crammed into basically what is much smaller than one city block, and is basically a a rectangle with an empty inner courtyard, and a rectangle on the perimeter. You have cells. You have often over 50 people in a room. They're taking turns sleeping, and they have no due process whatsoever. We have the dual majority in Haiti's justice system. The majority of people in jail are probably not criminals, and the majority of criminals in Haiti are not in jail. And many of them have suits and ties. So what happens is basically you had a number of very high level drug traffickers, gang leaders who were locked up in jail, and basically that jailbreak was specifically tailored to release those particular people. Now, in the process, you had a lot of people who were in jail, many of whom had probably been unfairly locked up. You're supposed to go in front of a judge in 48 hours when you get arrested based on the 1987 Constitution, but that rarely happens. And many people have been locked up for years without any due process. And so they probably benefited from this. But it is also true that there were a large number of hardened criminals who were released because, again,
Yeah.
in the interest of the gang leaders to spring them out so they could replenish their forces.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm curious. Prime Minister Ariel Henry, he's no longer, but um, did he intend to actually hold general elections? He said no later than August 2025.
So
And do you think,
it's important. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was wondering, do you think it was intended to prematurely install a new government? You think that was his intent by delaying elections?
Well, his intent was to not have elections. What we saw is this is a very, very, very unique set of circumstances in Haiti, because when we had a degree of constitutional order, going back from the 1987 Constitution, and the first prime minister who was sworn in Martial Celestin in the late 80s, for the next I would say 20, 25 years, we had, with some exceptions during the coup d'etat, for example, of 1991 to 1994, and then again in a second overthrow of the elected regime in 2004, lasting until early 2006, we had imposed prime ministers. But we also had over a decade within that period of constitutional rule, where we had a prime minister who was sworn into power based on constitutional principles. And we had what we call the bicéphalité, which is the shared executive power between the president and the prime minister. None of those prime ministers who were legitimate ever lasted as long as Ariel Henry. This is the crazy situation that someone who was put in charge, they say by a core group tweet, and basically was put in charge under no decision from the Haitian people, lasted over 2.5 years, basically based on inertia, based on the United States government and other governments deciding that he was their handpicked person, and that despite all of the demands, the demonstrations, the mobilizing to oust him, that they were not successful because
Well,
United States had the veto power. To go directly to your question about what his intentions were. So he was never in power in a context of peace. The entire time that he was in power, it was marked by very, very, very heavy gang activity. So basically, the clique that was running Haiti for the last 2 years and 8 months was able to justify not having elections by saying, "Hey, the security conditions are not conducive to having this election." Now, never mind that clique, had connections with the very gang activity that was allowing them to point to it to not have elections. And in the meantime, that provided these corrupt elements with the opportunity to continue to steal, to embezzle funds, to divert money that should have been spent for the well-being of the Haitian people. It became an incentive mechanism for them to continue to to enjoy the privileges of power and wealth without having any accountability to the Haitian people. Now, were elections possible in the last 2.5 years? We've argued that they were not possible under Ariel Henry's regime, and they were not possible under those conditions of security. But the very same people who were supposed to have the elections also were very, very complicit in creating the conditions that made those elections impossible.
Do you get the feeling that Ariel Henry never intended to step down? He didn't want to
He didn't. He did
give
not.
up power?
He did not. He did not. He had no project to step down. His only project was to maintain power as long as his sponsors in Washington, D.C. and other places allowed him to do so, because he basically had a green light. And what we in the overseas Haitian community, in the diaspora, were asking was for there to be accountability. And if the United States and other powerful nations had, even not necessarily saying you have to step down tomorrow, but if they had said you cannot hold power without limits, without conditionality, basically that he would be in a situation where his power was contingent on him making some concessions. And you see some of the jargon of the United States government now that they're finally admitting, after under extreme pressure, that Ariel Henry showed himself to be a very, very intransigent leader. But he could be intransigent because he knew that Washington, D.C. and other capitals had his back, and that he had no incentive to negotiate legitimate power sharing. And so he basically played for all or none, and now he has none. And again, the tragedy is that the country is in the conditions that it's in at this point.
Okay, now, what are your thoughts on why opposition party leaders like John Charles Moise have decided to align with rebel leader Guy Philippe?
So that I think was a big part of it. So what you see is, and just to set the record straight on who Guy Philippe is, Guy Philippe was a former police officer, as was Jimmy Cerise Barbecue. Many of these people who are leading paramilitary forces or who are leading basically armed groups or armed gangs, they have a history of being within the state. And I think the record on Mr. Philippe is very clear. First of all, on his criminal activity with drug dealing. If you look at the Judge Thomas Pinder, a man from the Caribbean who was a judge in Miami, who put an indictment in the mid 2000s, I believe it was 2005. If you look at that indictment against Mr. Philippe, it's very clear on the drugs charges, and in fact probably represents a tiny fraction of what the true scope of that of the drug trafficking of Mr. Philippe were. But we saw that for 12 years, Mr. Philippe inside Haiti evaded arrest, and finally was arrested in 2017 by the BLTS, basically brigade of Haiti that's responsible for narcotics enforcement, and was handed over and extradited to the United States, where he served approximately 6 years in jail, again for those charges. Now, if you read books such as Jeb Sprague, you will see a documented account of the role of Guy Philippe and other leaders who basically were leading death squads inside Haiti, and responsible for many deaths in 2002 and 2003 to destabilize the then elected government until it was finally ousted on February 29th, 2004. Very coincidentally, Mr. Guy Philippe's birthday. He was born on February 29th, on Leap Day 1968. Okay. And so the very fact that Moise Jean Charles, who has been a responsible member of civilian opposition would choose to enter into an alliance with Mr. Philippe, it really shows where the country has reached in terms of standards, in terms of the fact that you can be involved in all of these actions that I described, and still there will be members of the political class which will see it in their advantage to enter into an alliance. The alliance between Moïse Jean-Charles and Guy Philippe was based on a common interest to oust Mr. Henry. That effort has succeeded. And so then the issue is what is the next step?
Okay, well, that brings us to our next question. Now, CARICOM played a key role in organizing a high-level meeting on Haiti in Jamaica on Monday. Following that meeting, reporters were told that an agreement had been reached to allow for Prime Minister Dr. Ariel Henry to step down, which he did this morning. A new transitional government is to be arranged. Now, can you give us your thoughts on this and how it affects the current situation?
Yes, so it's very important to point out that there has been an important meeting which took place in Kingston, the Kingston meeting, which occurred yesterday on March 11th. And that was a very important meeting because of the scope of what we saw in that meeting regarding a power sharing arrangement. And it's very important to mention that in the days prior to the Kingston meeting, there were a number of political parties, such as Famille Lavalas, such as En Avant. There were diaspora organizations such as the Haitian American Foundation for Democracy. There were organizations, the initiatives such as the Montana Initiative, which you've probably heard about, based on August 30th, 2021 accord. And so, there were 6 organizations which basically wrote a letter with a series of demands about a transition in Haiti once the Ariel Henry regime stepped down. And what we saw in the Kingston meeting is that they basically took some of those organizations and they combined them with other organizations which are currently in government, or which are in the outgoing government, and basically imposed that these organizations work together as part of a 7-person presidential council, which is likely to oversee the next steps in Haiti. And so I think that it's important to mention that this is really setting up the country in some ways for failure. I mean, I think that they did make some very good decisions about the criteria of who can be in that council and who should not be in the council. For example, there were criteria about if you've ever been convicted, you cannot be a member of the presidential council. If you are being charged, if you're currently facing charges, you cannot be a member of the presidential council. If you want to be a candidate in the next elections, you cannot be a member of the presidential council. I think the majority of Haitians would agree with those particular stipulations, but I think in many ways the meeting also was spiked in advance, because the security, the MSS mission, the multinational security support mission, which has members, police from Kenya and other countries, Bangladesh, Benin, and I think there are 2 Caribbean countries as well, that have pledged to send troops to Haiti. The majority of responsible Haitian stakeholder organizations expected that question would be discussed during this meeting in Kingston yesterday. And in fact, the MSS was imposed and basically said, this is a red line. If you don't agree exactly how we have laid out the MSS, you're not part of the talks, and you're not part of the presidential council. And I think this was in many ways a slap in the face. I think there are a lot of people who have legitimate questions about this mission moving forward, and that was any discussion of that was completely off the table. And the possibility of being part of the presidential council was contingent upon everyone around the table agreeing unconditionally to the MSS as it's been set out. So I think that that's going to be a big challenge. I think the other challenge was, again, the government that's been in power, I mean, in its latest form for the last 2.5 years, and under the Martelly and Jovenel Moïse administrations before that, basically is very discredited in the view of the Haitian population. But their presence almost at parity strength was basically also imposed by the Kingston meeting. So I think that the forces for democracy and for change are going to find that their numbers and their decision-making clout is not going to be what it could or should have been if these negotiations had been balanced, but it was basically presented to them as a take it or leave it. And if you take it, you're taking a bad deal. But guess what? If you leave it, you're out in the cold completely. And they had to decide between a bad choice and a worse one.
Okay, well, all right. Is it still practical, though, to deploy a multinational force to Haiti, without a proper acting government? I mean, you think so?
So
Would you?
if you ask the credible stakeholders, in the Haitian community, for example, here in South Florida, they will say that they are echoing calls inside Haiti, that there are three absolute necessary elements which have to happen. First of all, order has to be restored. People are very, 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 many have been killed, over 1,000 this year, by this violence, and over 4 million people are facing, they're one step away from famine. I mean, it's a very, very, very serious situation.
Everybody's displaced right now.
Yeah, there are hundreds of thousands of displaced people from the recent violence, and people are going to die very soon if emergency assistance does not arrive. And I think that all of the remarks that we're making are calibrated in those terms. And unfortunately, if you look at a lot of the responsible members of the civil society and some of the political opposition, they're basically, unfortunately, were negotiating in Kingston yesterday with a gun to the head of the Haitian people inside Haiti. And they had very little margin to say this and this and this is what it should be. And again, a lot of those questions were headed off about what the security mission is going to look like. And that's been decided. And there's a script that was already established. And so, they're trying to have this move forward in its current form. Whether it's going to succeed or not, I mean, that's, again, a very important question. I would mention that there are a lot of Haitians who very strongly believe that, the Haitian National Police, it has a lot of difficulty. There's been a connection to the gangs of some of the higher members, and it needs to be vetted, and I think everyone would agree on that. But I think that funding a vetted and reformed Haitian National Police Force was a far better choice than bringing in people from Kenya, from Bangladesh,
Mhm.
from different countries who do not speak Creole, they do not speak French, they are not familiar with Haitian society, and I think that a lot of Haitian people would have really believed that a Haitian solution, strengthening the support to the police, fighting the gangs, would have been much more workable and would have had a better long-term possibility of success than what they're planning right now.
I don't understand the gangs, right? Okay, do you believe a crackdown on the gang activity would more or less assist with stabilizing the new political climate there? Because why are they fighting? I can't understand why the gangs are fighting against their own people. Is it just to oust Ariel Henry
No, no,
that they're causing so many people to suffer?
yeah, that is the latest form of gang activity. If we look back historically, the gangs, it was a mechanism of enriching for people to become rich, for
Mm.
people to uh, basically rob, rape, extort, kidnap, kill. And in many cases, they've been hired guns for wealthy people with a score to settle with someone else. or part of basically a criminal network, uh, where they are engaging this activity based on a higher up that is financing them. And then when the higher up is no longer able to financing them, then they're in a rogue situation. And in many cases, their guns are pointed at some of the same groups that had hired them in the first place. So I think that's the danger that we're facing. I think that 20 years ago, the argument could be made that some of the armed factions had, an agenda of one sort or another. It wasn't common criminality. I think that in many ways that era has passed. And I know there's a lot of debate about this because some of the gangs today are claiming to have a political agenda, claiming to have a class struggle agenda. That's part of their jargon now. But if you look at the facts, at the data, at the human rights reports, from Harvard, from very prestigious universities about the massacres in La Saline, in Bel Air, in Cité Soleil in the second half of the last decade, by these very same elements, leading many of them to be indicted with the Magnitsky Act by Washington D.C. for their criminal involvement, and basically that they are basically to be arrested if they're on site,
They've
and
caused
based
such
on
an,
what they did.
no, I'm just saying they've caused such an anarchy there and people suffering, running from their homes. I, I just think it's fruitless to fight that way, you know?
Well, again, don't simply look at their activity in a vacuum. Someone said in the 1930s, pay no attention to the man behind the curtains. You remember that movie?
No, which,
The Wizard of Oz, So
oh, the wizard. Okay.
that's you just see the person with the gun in the popular neighborhood, in the marginalized neighborhood. You don't see the political hand, the economic hand that is guiding, that is instructing, that is financing that gang act.
Hmm.
You don't see elements in the United States sending the weapons. The vast majority of the weapons being used by gang activity in Haiti originated in Florida. Haiti does not manufacture weapons or ammunition, and therefore this problem needs to be resolved at every level. But because of the lobbying influence in Washington, D.C., of many of these same actors who are part of financing the gangs in Haiti, sending weapons, sending ammunition, paying, bankrolling these operations, it becomes very difficult to establish accountability. Now, there was the Haiti Accountability Act in DC. It was bipartisan. It was a good first step. It was vastly insufficient to resolve the problem because at the end of the day, this is an issue of power and privilege. And the best way to decapitate gang activity is to decapitate the financing of the gangs and to decapitate the power of those vested interests of Haitians and their partners inside and outside of Haiti that has made this gang activity impossible. But we don't get that view of things often in the mainstream media. They're just showing you poor Black people from marginalized neighborhoods who are doing this killing. And it's not that simple. And I know that in Jamaica, you've had a very similar history where you can't look at these gangs in a vacuum, where these gangs also are connected, to very influential stakeholders inside your country, and therefore you will be in a very good position to understand, why we have these issues in Haiti. Yeah,
So who are these organizations though that is funneling all of this ammunition? Do we know who they are?
it's anyone and everyone. It's the wealthy elite. It's elements of the police inside Haiti. It's elements of the former parliament. It's the outgoing government and their party. I mean, there are human rights reports from Yale Harvard, and New York University, who make the linkages between the PHTK party in Haiti and gang activity, particularly in the case of Vitelom. These reports are very clear, establishing those linkages. And you have many of these elites, are very connected in Washington, D.C. They finance politicians' electoral campaigns. They and their lobbyists regularly visit these offices, the congressional offices and the executive branch offices as well in Washington, D.C. And so it's this transitivity of relationship where you have a lot of the Washington establishment is only 2 degrees of separation away from this gang activity. And so also in Florida, you have in our community here in Florida, a lot of people who are responsible for this gang smuggling, and it's imperfectly and insufficiently enforced in ports leaving the state of Florida. And these guns and ammunition are entering into Haiti, and this is the root of the problem. And until that problem is solved, it's going to be very difficult to reverse this trend.
Okay, well, Mr. Namphy, lastly, right, from your perspective, can you tell us what it is like, what is going on right now? What is the current situation on the ground in Haiti as of today, since
So
we've got the news of Ariel Henry's resignation?
yes, thank you for that question. And what I would have to say is that the 11 to 12 million people living in Haiti are not living a common reality. Okay, you have many, many people in the country. In fact, in 8 of the 10 geographic departments, although the 8 departments that are, and we're not including the two of the 3 most populated ones are where the problem is. But in the other 8, you don't have this issue of daily gang violence. I mean, it's been moving in that direction, but the majority of the geographic space of Haiti is in a situation where they are going about their daily lives, but their lives are challenging because of the centralization of the country is creating a situation where the hub of decision making and of resources in Haiti is the part that is being affected by gang violence. I think people will be very relieved to see that this very reviled and disliked government has stepped down. But I think that they're waiting to see what will happen next. Now, for people in Port-au-Prince, that's a completely different question. And I think that the people of Port-au-Prince are waking up and going to sleep in a daily nightmare where they don't know if they're going to survive the next day, if they're going to have food, if they're going to be shot, if their sisters and mothers and daughters are going to be raped, if they're going to be kidnapped and held for ransom. I mean, these are the huge challenges that people are facing. And because of that, it's absolutely necessary for law and order to be restored. And so that is what we can say to that regard. We are hoping that there is an evolution where things evolve to the point where we have a new government that will break with the cycle of violence, that will be attentive to the needs of the Haitian people, and that will be a locus for decision making so that the people of Haiti can finally find protection from these gangs.
So you do agree
And
now with the
election of elections.
Okay. Now, you do agree now with the deployment of outside forces coming in to try and restore law and order there.
So that is a decision that people inside Haiti have to make. We have always been very clear about our uplifting of sovereignty, the need for Haiti's sovereignty, the need for Haitian-driven solutions. We realize that in this current circumstance, we need immediate law and order to enable the delivery of life-supporting services. And we are hoping that this law and order can be established by the new decision makers who will be put into office and who can make credible decisions in terms of what their needs are, what the needs of the national police are, and how those needs can be met.
What are your thoughts on Blinken's speech yesterday?
We would simply say that for 2.5 years, the administration was part of the problem. They were the ones who were holding the outgoing regime in power. And so I think that we would have hoped for humility and say, Haiti, we're sorry for what we did. And we want to work with civil society leaders and with legitimate political leaders to move things forward. But even in this negotiation, I explained to you how it was baked in favor of some of the outgoing government and also in favor of this MSS force. So I will leave my comments at that.
Okay. Mr. Namphy, thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate it. The audience and our viewers will as well. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. We do hope to see a new Haiti with the right leadership in place with strategic goals. And I pray for the betterment of this blessed country.
Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. And
You
keep
too.
Haiti in thoughts and prayers.
I will. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.